Welcome to GraphQL in Umbraco. If you're here, I'm assuming you're very excited about GraphQL and you want to hear A, what the hell is it? And B, what's it got to do with Umbraco and why should we be excited about it? A few trigger word warnings. I swear a lot. So if you don't like swearing, probably in the wrong talk. I don't mean it in a bad way. My brain goes too fast and it skips the filters of what is decent to say in public. And secondly, I will have no questions at the end of this talk. I've got too much to get through, and I hate questions at the end of talks. There's always someone stands up and asks a really long-winded 3-minute question that's very specific, very, very detailed, and no one else in the room, including them, really wants to hear what the answer is. So if you really want to catch me at the bar. You can buy me a beer. Really simple. You want to ask me a question, you have to buy me a beer. That's the rules. So it's a mutually beneficial arrangement. It also means you get me for at least 4 sips. So you make the most. So what the hell is GraphQL? Let's just cut straight to the chase, shall we? It was created by Facebook about 6 years ago. Lots of people think it's really new and it's the new hotness. 6 years. I mean, God, we're in internet land. That might as well be a lifetime. So it's actually quite old tech. It's just that it's become public about 3 years ago and it started to get a lot of traction. Obviously, when Facebook come out and say, hey, we've got this amazing new thing, only Facebook have that amazing new thing. So loads of other people have to play catch up. We're now getting to the point where it's caught up a little bit, so it'll be pretty good. Their data is a graph. So when you've got friends of friends and you like things, as far as they're concerned, that they consider all to be this magical thing called a graph. That's where the name GraphQL comes from. It has nothing to do with graph databases, which the graph database people get very grumpy about. It's not GraphQL, it's just a stupid name we had to pick. Get over yourselves. And effectively, it's a new API standard. Yes, another one. We all know the meme about, now you know regex, and now you've got 2 problems, or let's create a new system for RSS, and now there's 19 systems for RSS. Yes, it's another API schema, but hey, it's a good one, so it's okay. And it ends something that I call restception, which is death by a million REST endpoints, which we'll explain about a little bit more. And it's got a really good, like just about all Facebook tech that they've open sourced. I know we're all quite anti-Facebook because they're the devil, but by God, they do some good tech. And the guys they have been working with them, they produce some amazing stuff. And they open source all of it. And one of their big things is developer experience. They are super strong on making sure that the code you're working with helps you be productive, because it's in their interest. So they go really long ways to make that developer experience really good. So one of the reasons I like React, if you know I'm Mr. React in Umbraco land, exactly the same thing. The developer experience in React was just amazing, and it's carried on into this GraphQL stuff that they're doing as well. So in a nutshell, GraphQL lets you request only the data you need. I'm talking about an API request here, and then it lets you return it only in the shape you need. So if you only need 4 fields from a doc type, for instance, you can just request those 4 fields and it will give you those 4 fields, as opposed to saying, give me the whole doc type and then throw the rest of it away and only use those 4 fields. That, in a nutshell, is basically all GraphQL does. Good day. Thank you very much. We're done. So this came about at CoGarden. I've been following GraphQL for a long time, since it was announced in Paris at React Europe. They announced it up on stage that they had this new schema and everything they come up with, and a standard that they'd written, and a JavaScript implementation that you could go have a play with. And I wanted to be the guy who wrote the .NET version, and then I realised I'm not smart enough, so I thought I'd just wait till someone smarter actually did it. Anyway, you go along, enough time comes by, and I'm at CoGarden, and they're announcing headless and how amazing headless is, which uses a REST endpoint. And I said, well, what this really needs is a GraphQL thing, so straight away I could see it. It's a good couple of talks at CoGarden. If you've never been to CoGarden, go to CoGarden. You will never regret going to CoGarden. And having tweeted this out, Neil said, oh, that would be lovely. I said, yes, we should make that happen. And then Dan, who's in the room, hello Dan, he then said, yes, this would be lovely. I've been playing with it and it's fabulous. So Dan endorses GraphQL. So what's this got to do with Umbraco? Like I said, I raised it at CoGarden, specifically because Niels had said, what can we do to make headless work? And to me, this is a perfect fit. This makes headless work. The REST APIs are all very nice and good and things, but it's a bit clunky once you see what this thing can do. And so this is needed to make headless fly, as far as I'm concerned. It's a great fit for the data that we store. We've got properties and fields and doc types, and you can request all those things. You can get those things back through GraphQL. And so far, your brain's going, yeah, I can do this with REST. What's new? Wait for it, it's coming. It's perfect fit for headless, and it will expand the appeal of Umbraco by moving to GraphQL, which is now what a lot of people are expecting from a system. Will be one of the first .NET sort of CMSs or data store magicness that will have it. There's a lot of JavaScript versions and even some PHP stuff that's already got it. We're kind of not catching up. We're just like neck and neck with those other technologies. And I think it will bring a lot of new people who aren't .NETers, who aren't C-sharpers, will be able to come and have a play with it, because it removes the need for you to have that knowledge to be able to get an endpoint up and running. Currently, you need to be a C-sharp developer to get a REST endpoint up and running. With GraphQL, you don't. And so that makes it quite exciting. Please hold. And we're back. And when we raised all this, the community stepped in. There's quite a few of us that started talking about how it might happen, how might we do it, what we're going to do with it, and then slowly but surely we managed to get something up and running. So, cut to the chase, and the spoiler alert, we've got GraphQL working in Umbraco, and I'll be able to show you in a minute. And one of the people who stepped up was a hero. I give you Rasmus, the man, the legend. No, I've never really heard of him either before, but you'll know him as the multi-URL picker dude. He wrote that. He's quite a quiet introvert type who sits at the back and doesn't say anything, who then just knocks out amazing code, the best sort. And he jumped onto the issue that I'd raised about how we could do GraphQL. I was going down a models builder route, that we'd modify models builder. It's already doing all the magic we kind of need. I thought we could somehow shoehorn GraphQL into that. And he went, well, I've been working on this thing for a couple of weeks. Might help. I said, oh, that'd be great. Send it over. How often have we heard this? And you get it, you go, oh, less, 3 classes. It's all right, isn't it? Well, instead, that's what kind of I was expecting. And then instead, he dropped me this whole solution that's just hours and days and months worth of work. And it just worked. I dropped it on a client site, and it's like, holy fucking shit. I've got GraphQL. So as far as I'm concerned, absolute legend. And if you ever see him buying beer, he likes beer. Yeah, he produced this magical bit of kit, which was phenomenal for us, because for my company, I offer a code. We're only 6. Everyone seems to think we're about 50, but we're tiny. But I was prepared to invest in this to get this going, and we were umming and ahhing about how we were going to do the nuts and bolts of it, ground level, building foundation stuff. And then this guy came around and went, bum, 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 there you go, 5-story house, what do you want? Brilliant! Now I can think about what paint to put on the walls. We just jumped straight ahead into the bigger problems as opposed to the nuts and bolts of it. We can instead just talk about, right, what happens if someone changes a doc type and you've already got a query out there? How are we going to handle that? Quite big, high-level stuff as opposed to how do we find this right filter? Do we go through which service do we go? You've done all that, so we didn't have to worry about it. So as a result, more brains can come on it, and we can actually start making this thing sing, which is fantastic. So final point, Rasmus, legend. So I'm going to give you a sample problem so you can understand about where we're coming from and why GraphQL might be a better fix for what we're going to do. And we're going to do it old school and REST. So bear with me as we go back in time, or current day problems. So I work in travel a lot. We're travel specialists. If you ever get a client who wants to travel and you go, fucking hell, that sounds complicated, give me a ring. Okay, that's what we do. So everything's going to be about hotels. I'm afraid my brain is hardwired to hotels. I do so much travel. Did an estate agent site once, kept referring to all the properties as hotels. It's kind of just in there. You can't get rid of it. Terrible thing. So we want to create a short list of hotels. On that short list, we want to show a summary of each hotel with an image and some location data. And the list is going to be dynamic, so you can add, remove, because it's a short list. That's how you want it to work. Now, just to be clear, we're not actually going to build any of this. It's just a mental model, so you can understand where we can get the data from. And while I now fudge for a minute, I know your brains are already chugging and going, well, we're going to have an REST endpoint that does this, it's going to pull that field in. So you're already doing what we need to do, because we're problem solvers as developers. You're already solving the problem. So with enough filler, we'll move on to see what that might look like. And it's going to be client-side, JavaScript, etc. So you might want to make something like this. Which one makes you giggle? Is it my shed? No, not Vegas, Huddersfield.
Studios.
What kind of studios? It's not music studios. It's a bed and a kitchenette. With a single ring hob that's on the drainer next to the sink. That's not a kitchen, is it? Health and safety gone mad. Welcome to Greece. So, and as a result, your brain is probably thinking, right, I need a JSON response. Probably look something like that. By the way, you can just skim this. You don't have to look at it. It's probably full of errors. I'm just giving you something to chew on, so it's all good. So yes, we've got an ID, name. Your brain's going, yeah, I can see that's about right. This is all good. And if we did it in REST, we've probably got 2 options. We could create a custom endpoint that returns just the data that we need. We could knock one of them up. Dead easy. What's that going to be, an hour? An hour and a bit, maybe? Then you've got to release it, compile it, realise you're cocked up, go back, change something, release it again. That's right. Do all those bits of magic. Or you can fetch all the data in the world for a hotel 4 times, because we've got 4 hotels in my demo. And then you throw 99% of that data away and only use the 4 fields that you need. There probably are 2 real unrealistic options. If you want to use Umbraco Headless currently, you have to do option 2. There is no option 1. They will not let you run custom code on Headless. None of you knew that, did you? Right, cock up that one. Anyway. So we're probably going to go, so number 1's out, you'll have to go number 2. You're putting down a load of hotels, those hotels are going to be huge. Let's go see what we can do. So here are the problems with those 2 options. Let's get just the data we need. This sounds like the smart, sensible way of doing this. What we're going to do is we're going to do something called underfetching. What if we need the country name? So you do it all, you build it, you release it, show it to the client, aren't we very smart? And they go, yeah, we need to let them know it's in Cyprus. And you go, that's doable. It's another code compile, release, put it back out, and then I'm going to change front end. Yeah, but it's doable, we can add country in. So now you're going to underfetch. So if you need country, if you've got a smart front end, what they might want to do is go, I can get the country data by just requesting the country. And I'll pull all the country data down, throw away 99.9% of it to get the country name, and that would be genius, because they aren't aware about using performance on the front end, because they're just under a tight budget and they just want to make it work. So they end up probably overfetching by doing multiple requests to get the same data. When in fact, we could just mash with that API endpoint and put it in there, but again, that takes time. Oh, the joys of being a developer. So it requires back-end time if you're going to change the API, which is totally fine. But what happens is, your front ender's doing his bit, put it all in there, hands it over to the back-end developer. Well, she's pretty busy. She's not going to be able to get to it for 4 days. And then eventually she goes, oh, I've made the change, didn't take too long. You push it back in, you push it back up. Job's a good one. It's taken a week to add a country name in. Client's not very happy. They're looking elsewhere. They think you're too slow. That's just shit, isn't it? But that's the way it works. So we want to add yet more fields. God damn you. What is it with all these changes? We want price going in. We've got to repeat the whole thing again. And the trouble is this endpoint, you can't change it because it might be out in the wild. You might have a third party who's using these endpoints in order to pull in your hotel data and use on their aggregate website. So you can't just go changing these endpoints willy-nilly. You might have other code internally that's using these endpoints and it's not expecting to have price or country in there. And now the whole thing's going to blow up. Because you deserialize it into a class and it goes, do not recognize price. And you go, cock, what have we done? There's only one way around this. I'll create a new endpoint. I'll create a new endpoint. So we create a new endpoint, and this is just going to get messy, because where does it end? So do we create get hotels new? Because that's quite good, isn't it? That gets you out of Dodge. Another change, another new. It's an internal gag at this point. There's comments around it going, oh, new. Oh, this is so funny. It's a code smell. Get hotels 2. Kind of, God damn it, how many changes do they need? Get hotels with price. Yeah, now we're getting smart. Let's get semantic about this. Let's describe what it's actually doing and what it's returning. Get hotels with price and star rating. Get hotels with price and star rating a big image. Good God, what are we doing? This is insanity. And each time one of these is released, no one dare go back and change it, because you don't know what's used either. And so every one of these, wasn't that funny? To get hotels new is still in that code base 4 years later, because no one dare touch it. It's like a massive game of Kaplunk. I'm not going to be the one to break that. So you leave it all be. So that's some of the problems we've got with option 1. That is REST inception in very much defined. Option 2 is fetch all the data per hotel. This one's got its own problems as well. Massive overfetch. We're getting loads more data than we need. We don't need all that data. We need like 5 fields. We're going to throw away 99% of it. What a complete waste. Then we've got problems with file size, memory usage, transfer time, battery usage. 50% of my travel sites are all on mobile these days, and I'm going to be sending down a meg's worth of JavaScript. It's got to parse that JavaScript, keep it in memory, chug it away. It just destroys mobile phones. So that's all bad stuff. We shouldn't really be doing that. And the response could grow over time. Yeah, when we first built this feature at the start of the project, because it's something they're very keen on and it's very visual facing, so we want to get it done first to keep the client happy, we'll build it, it's all very great, and then slowly over time we add more and more fields to the hotels, because someone has this amazing idea to add special offers, and so suddenly you're reporting things from spreadsheets and God knows what else. And now what started out as 20 fields and seemed quite manageable, suddenly without anyone really keeping a check on it, you're now pulling down 300 fields worth of JSON, and no one's really any of the wiser. So they're both pretty bad offers. They both really have issues. Changes are needed, they can't handle it very well. It requires back-end developers, which slows down the development cycle. You're either too narrow a data fetch or too wide a data fetch. And there seems to be no Goldilocks solution, that magic bit where you can just request just what you want without causing all these problems. I like to think of REST like a mixtape. When someone makes you a mixtape, sorry, those who don't remember mixtapes, bear with me. It was like Spotify, but analog. Right. When someone made you a mixtape, which used to be a way of flirting, there's actually probably only 4 songs on there you actually liked, but you still had to carry the whole freaking tape round. And you had to forward pass past the share song that you put on for a laugh every freaking time, just to get the good one that you like, or there's a little bit further on. So there's an awful lot of data on there, and you don't necessarily need it all, and it gets a bit of a pain in the ass. And then if you want to create another one, you end up making a lot of mixtapes, and then you have to try and find which mixtape's got your favourite song on. And you may have your favourite song, and actually several of those mixtapes, but then equally, there might be other songs on there that you can't stand, and so you're trying to pick the best mixtape that's the best fit. And you don't know which one you left in your mate's car. And on it goes on, mixtapes. GraphQL steps in, dun dun dun, another hero. So let's turn this problem on its head. The client asks for what data it wants. And the clever bit is the server knows how to stitch that data together and return it. To do that, we have to do an awful lot of work up front on the server end, which is the bit that makes everyone's bottom fall out. If only there's a way we could automate that. Spoiler alert, there is. And so, by knowing what's going to stitch together, it can return you just what you needed and just in the shape that you requested it. Isn't that exciting? And to me, that means GraphQL is more like Alexa. You can just ask for what you want, and Alexa will find it. Unless you're swearing at Alexa. So you can say, Alexa, play Thunderclouds by Sia on Spotify. And Alexa will say, playing Thunderclouds by Sia on Spotify. Boop, boop, and do its magic. And that's what we want. It's doing exactly what we want. So quit teasing, let's see what it actually looks like. This is a rough and ready version of what GraphQL query looks like. It's not syntactically correct because I wrote it off the top of my head, but it's pretty damn close to give you an idea. It's JSON-like. It's not JSON. And the reason for that is we could have done it like JSON, or Facebook could have done it like JSON, but it starts looking pretty bloated and pretty horrible pretty quick. You have a lot of empty strings, a lot of null values on the end. It doesn't read very pretty. So they decided to go the extra step to actually write their own parser that would parse this, know what it means, and then be able to build you the query at the other end. So it's JSON-esque. So here we have a hotel. I'm asking for a particular hotel with a particular ID, and then I'm saying I just want these fields, please. I didn't highlight all the fields. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the response comes back. It's wrapped in a data element, and then inside it says Pete's Castle, star rating 5, image URL, and URL. That's exactly what I requested, and that's exactly what it came back with. Whoop frickin' skip. Well, it does what we wanted. Who thought that? And it can do this because it knows your data. It knows what you've got in there. It knows what data types you've got. It knows what fields you've got on those data types. Please hold. And as a result, it knows how to stitch these things together. It knows how they relate. It knows, for instance, some doc types are allowed under other doc types. And so by doing all that, it can build up what's called a schema. And that schema is basically what runs GraphQL. So what we need to be able to do is we need to take our Umbraco data, we need to be able to then build a schema out of that. Your brains, again, are probably whizzing away going, well, we know what doc types are allowed under doc type, we could build that up quite easy. We know what properties are on there, we can build that up quite easy. That's pretty much all we do under the hood. It's pretty damn smart. But that's just an endpoint, that'd be quite hard to use. So Facebook came up with this other amazing tool called GraphQL, which is a one-pager that you can download. You point it at the GraphQL endpoint, and then it looks at your schema. First thing it requests is, give me the schema that you've got for whatever this endpoint is. It then knows exactly what you've got available. It can then do clever things like give you IntelliSense. You can then start typing away, and it will then start showing you live data straight away. It's an absolutely fantastic UI to allow people to build up these queries really fast. So it knows your thing, oh, and we get error checking, which is also pretty damn cool. And it gives you instant live data. There is a moment when you get people loose on this stuff where they go, and then you actually let them start typing, and as soon as they start typing, the data starts coming back up. There's this eye-widening moment where they go, and suddenly all that excitement just kicks in when they realise what this means. And that's the point that I want everyone to try when you go home this weekend. There's a Star Wars thing we can go look at, which I'll give you a demo of in a minute. It's just freaking amazing. You don't have to know anything about Star Wars, but you can start floating around. Video coming up. You can shout zoom if you want, but it's a video, I can't zoom it, sorry. So here we are, we're on the Star Wars GraphQL endpoint here. This is using GraphQL, this is what it looks like. It's giving me IntelliSense while I'm trying to find all species. Just to give you an idea, when I did this, I have no idea what the data is here. I am just exploring live as it happens, and it's telling me what's available in species. That sounds interesting. What fields have I got available in species? Well, I've got name, that's quite cool. I'll type that. What else in it? Eye colour, fucking hell. Put all sorts of stuff in there. And I hit run, and bang, there's the data straight back, fast as you like, pretty quick, isn't it? And that's giving me, let's say I want to go get another field, let's add to that. So without having to do a REST API deployment, boom, I get all the extra data in. Now, if you envisage giving that to a front-ender, who's pretty handy at JSON, very quickly, they no longer need you anymore. They can just get stuff done. Well done, developers, you've made yourself defunct. It means you can get on with more important things, like, I don't know, debugging SQL queries or something. Real work. So that in a nutshell is GraphQL in doing what it does. That's graphical itself doing what it does. And that's a live data set. And if you search for graphical Star Wars, you'll find that demo, and you can play with it all you like. I don't know a lot about Star Wars. I think it's a dreadful data set to be playing with. But you can go and explore it, and you can start finding shit out really fancy. I do recommend you go look at the starships. That's quite fun. You find out how many credits the Millennium Falcon is. Who knew? So, again, back to this developer experience thing. I don't know if you saw there, that was really easy to go and explore. That was really easy to work out what I needed to do. That's part of developer experience. It's something I would like to see more of in Umbraco. And beautifully, Neil saw my talk that I did for this in the US conference a couple of weeks ago, and he's privately got in touch with me. I say privately, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. Anyway, he's got in touch saying, we need to know more about this DX stuff. We want to do more of this. We think it's a really cool idea. So hopefully we're going to see more of this in core, which I certainly hope we can as well. So DX is effectively helping the developer do the job with suggestions of proactive help and warnings. So in React land, for instance, if you do a typo, it'll tell you did a typo, and then it will try and do the best guess thing of what it thinks you did. So nothing really blows up. It says, you fucked up there. Here's where you fucked up, but I kind of know what you were trying to do. So this is what I think you were trying to do. Do you want to read this blog post about this common error? You're like, wow. It's like having a really experienced developer next to you, just whispering sweet nothings in your ear. It's lovely. So that to me is what DX is all about. So with the GraphQL endpoint kind of idea, we get safe defaults. There's always nulls come back. It will never just blow up and say do not know. Instead, it will always try and give you something. So your front-end code can still at least try and render something. It also returns errors as a properties. You saw that we had a data attribute came back in my sample. If there was errors, there'd then be an error attribute or object would come back to, and it'd give you a nice big long list of array of all the things that you fucked up, which is pretty cool. It can give you IntelliSense, which obviously is just super duper powerful, and it's got safety built in. As for instance, some of your brains are probably thinking, there's no fucking way I'm giving this to a front ender. They're going to do some horrific query that's going to go ridiculously deep and bring my server to its knees. Well, they have this thing called a complexity score that you can put on your queries. And you go, if the query gets more than this, throw it away with an error and say, sorry, you need to do something a bit simpler. You're going to blow up the server, which I think is fabulous. So that's sort of been thought about and baked in. It's Facebook at the end of the day. They don't want these servers blowing up, even though they've got all the servers in the world. So that's an example of the kind of error message you can get back. You can see I mistyped hotel. It didn't blow up horrifically. It actually told me what I did wrong and roughly where I did it. You compare this, for instance, if you've ever tried starting up Umbraco with a database that doesn't exist because you've not done the connection string wrong. It says, error in line 53, deep in the bowels of somewhere. What it doesn't say is, I can't get in touch with your database, which would be a much better error message, wouldn't it? And that's the kind of thing we're hopefully going to try and fix. Have you ever tried starting an Umbraco site with a web.config that's missing? Good fucking luck. There is nothing holding your hand there going, missing a web config there, mate. You might want to check that out. It does something about database connection. Anyway. So this is the difference. So when you come to this sort of stuff like, oh, I'm productive again. So dev benefits, let's have a quick chat through this. Front-enders can get the data they need without necessarily needing back-ender. Again, we've made ourselves redundant. That's okay. It streamlines development. Now, rather than taking 4 days to get a country added into a shortlist, which really should only take an hour, guess what? Your front-ender can bang, bang, open it up, request the country, country's coming back, render it out, push that in, and it can be in production within the hour. That's exactly the way that ought to be. You get one input, multiple data sources, so it's possible to use GraphQL to sort of mask as a proxy over lots of different endpoints that you might have. You might have a separate database for some sort of member sign-up. You might have something else for reviews, and then you might actually have your Umbraco data. You can mask all those under one GraphQL endpoint and bring them all together without having to do loads of REST API endpoint magic. And one of the favourite ones I like about it is it will warn you about obsolete fields. So if you mark a field as defunct or deprecated, one of them words you never say out loud very often, you can mark them as obsolete and it will warn you. It'll say, hey, you're using star rating. We don't use that anymore. We use something called flame rating. But I kind of know what you're after. So it's quite cool, that sort of stuff. And we've got a system that we're working on in-house as to how we might be able to automatically flag those, which I'll talk about in a minute. don't want to spoil it too much. So one thing to note, this isn't SQL. Again, your developer brain will be going, oh my God, what have they done? Now another query language. That's not what it's about. It wasn't built to do that. They are not the same beast. It's really designed to just get JSON and prettify it, which is one of the loveliest lines I think I've ever had when thinking about JSON. A lot of the apps that we build, we react to stuff, we're getting JSON and we're making it look nice. That's basically all we tend to do. So prettifying JSON. It's difficult to build a bad query. Again, you've got this complexity score it puts in there. It really warns you if you are doing anything crazy. But stop when you're feeling resistance. Sometimes you're going to need something real deep. Don't beat GraphQL to try and get it done. Either create a new GraphQL widget that will allow you to do it, or just, don't go dirty and build a REST API. It's okay. Sometimes you have to use the escape hatch. And it's damn fast with literally little effort. You haven't got to think about optimizing it. It just works. So beyond the basics in GraphQL, we've also got some other exciting bits in. Pagination's baked in because Facebook have been using it for 6 years and they thought about it. So rather than your front ender having to keep a track of how many pages in they are when they're doing stuff, or what the page size is, or what's the next thing to go request, if you tell it that you want the first 10, it'll automatically assume you're doing pagination, and it will give you all those bookmarks and everything, tell you how many pages you're doing. All that comes down, and your front end can just use those without having to do all that magic logic that always gets off by 1 errors. How many times does that come up in QA? I press the last button and it blows up. -1. So filtering's baked in too. You can say things like, get me all hotels that begin with M if you really wanted to. Please hold. I much prefer that lager to the blonde, by the way. And you have this amazing thing called fragments, which I'll show you a little bit later on. As you might imagine, you may have a chunk of fields that you want to keep reusing. So if you've got a short list summary, you might want to keep reusing 4 or 5 of those fields. Why keep rewriting those same 4 or 5 out? Why don't we save that as sort of like an include that we can do in queries elsewhere? And that's what a fragment allows you to do. You want to say, I want to include the SEO field, please. And you can just say, include SEO fields. And it will include all the fields that you've put in that fragment. And again, I'll give you an example of that later. The beauty of that is it means that you can have that set in one place, so we're keeping things nice and dry. And secondly, it makes your queries a lot shorter because you're just doing a one-liner include as opposed to cut and pasting the same fields everywhere. And there's this idea of mutations, which is changing data through GraphQL. Not possible in the current GraphQL for Umbraco that we're doing. We just want to get it working. Don't beat me up. But in theory, yes, you will be able to poke stuff back. So if you wanted to upgrade a blog review, or you want to like something, in the future you'll be able to send a GraphQL query up that would do just that. And so much more, but I only have 45 minutes. So how's it work? How have we managed to do it? So Umbraco knows your data. GraphQL just needs to know about it. So on startup, we loop over all your doc types and we start building up this magic schema. From that schema, we can then just point the endpoint to it, and from then on, it just works. There's actually not much that we have to do beyond that. And if this does it out of the box, it all works automatically, which Janae's not in the room, and normally she gives me a cheer when we do that. But automatically is awesome. It just stops you having to think. It just does what it needs to do. And we also bake in GraphQL from the outset. So when you install the package, or the NuGet package that we've got for this, which is available, I literally do it today. You can go home and play with it if you want to. GraphQL will get baked in at /Umbraco/graphical, and then lo and behold, you get that screen where you get to start playing with that data straight away. So another video, here's me actually going to get some proper data now. So I'm going to get a hotel, because obviously we do travels. This is live customer data that we're working with. I have to do a content because that's just the way it is. I'm getting content by type. There's 3 different ways you can get content. You can get it by type, you can get it by what's on the home page, you can also get it by ID. And I'm saying, can you get me this hotel, please? And I want these fields, which remember are the ones we want for the shortlist. So I'm just going to type these in. Now I'm going to do a bit of exploring, because I literally was making this up on the fly when I did the video. Canonical URL, that seems like the one we probably want. But look, it's coming back empty because no one's actually filled the damn thing in. Brilliant. So I go looking elsewhere. Now built into Umbraco, we've got some hard-coded fields that are available. One of those is name. The trouble is you might have a field called name as well, and they'll clash. So any of the built-in ones we put under something called content data. So I'm now going to go look for that. I'm going to get the name instead. One of the other fields I can get from content data is the URL of that content as well. And now I actually get back what I wanted, which is the URL. The trouble with content data is what I love about using this and dog food and this sort of stuff is I'm finding that pretty wordy, and already we've got an issue about discussing about whether we can shorten that down. For instance, making the built-in things to start with an underscore, I think would make this read a lot better. And they're the kind of problems now that we're sorting out. Again, I discussed that we're no longer beyond nuts and bolts. We're now into higher level stuff, talking about the semantics and the scheme, the syntactical sugar that we could put on it now. And that shows you just how far we've come, that we're thinking about these bigger things, as opposed to does it bloody work? We're past that now. So I quite like that for that. So that's a very simple example of us going to get data and that data coming back. And as quick as that, there it all was. So inside Umbraco, we've got some issues on how to do this. For instance, which fields are public? Some of you may or may not know, I sell Japanese kitchen knives on the side. There's a side project we do, and inside my Umbraco instance, I store the actual price that I buy those knives for. I don't want that information going out to my customers if I stick GraphQL on it. Currently, everything's public. So what I actually need is some rules on there to actually say, make these fields public, and these ones are secret. We don't want these coming out. And to do that, we need some sort of authentication. This is where Offer a Code have stepped in. We've made a package that sort of does that. It's a bit rough and ready at the minute, but it allows you to opt in which fields are available and which aren't. We also have the problem of quirky data types. There are a ton of different data types that people are writing in packages now. I use Vorto as an example. There's nothing wrong with Vorto. Obviously, it's a fantastic piece of kit, but it does save down a huge chunk of JSON. What do we do with that JSON? How do we get into there? For those that don't know, with Vorto, it saves different translations for a particular piece of content that you've got in the back office. And to get it to work, you need to tell it what language you want back. So for instance, if I want English, I would put in EN. And so what we need is a way to say, I would like the hotel name in English, please. And so we're kind of working out how we might be able to do that. We're probably going to go down the route of having yet more providers, or whatever you want to call it, or converters, yet more, which just gets really annoying, because now we've got some for courier, we've got some for cloud, we've got some for everything else that you need to make, all these, God knows how many more providers, things that we're going to have to make. And sadly, we're going to need another one for GraphQL. It's getting a bit over the top, that stuff. There's nothing we can do about it. But we're having to think about some of those things. Compositions, again, let's say you've got an SEO composition that you want to do. We've already built it in that you can request, so you saw me query by hotel there. I could also query by composition. So I could say, go get me the SEO data for ID 12345. And you'll go, here are all the fields for SEO data. The IntelliSense then won't give me any other IntelliSense other than the SEO composition. So I'm only getting the SEO fields, which is quite handy. Name clashes you saw, we've kind of got around by using that content data. As explained, I think it's a bit wordy, and we're going to revisit it, but at least shows that we're thinking about these things. Computated fields, let's say you've got, you want to do some numbers, like how many hotels has a particular region got under it. Currently, we have no way of getting that into GraphQL, and we still need to think about how to do it. There's an issue open. I'm welcome for more brains to be on the idea. What we're currently thinking is you can't. You just have to come up with something, but it's something we're certainly pondering. And then the big one that a lot of the developers who have done this for keep asking for is, well, I already have my own domain models. I want to plumb them into GraphQL. How do we do it? And we go, we don't know. We're working on that ourselves, but we wanted to get the automagical bit working first. And then what we're probably going to do is give you an endpoint or an extension point where you can register your own objects, probably through attributes. And then GraphQL on startup will go look for those and start adding those in, and they'll just appear in your schema. That's where we're thinking of going with it. We haven't done any work on it yet. Just so you know, by the way, I was out shouting in a bar last night, as I'm sure most of you were, and now I sound like an adolescent teenager whose voice keeps breaking. So every time you hear me go, feel free to just giggle. It's all good. And then how do we get that content? Well, we've come up with a few different options. You can see we did by type, so you can say get me by hotel. You can also do by ID, so you can say I just want this content item by Umbraco ID. There's another one at root. So if you want to build up your site navigation, you can go to root and you can start getting all the details from that. And we're open to offers on anything else that we might need. Examine always gets raised, like how do you do an examine search and things like that. And we've got an issue open as to how we might be able to do an examine search. But what we're not trying to do is just recreate everything in GraphQL. That would be quite bore achy. So instead, we're trying to find good fit solutions for 95% of the problems. But feel free to jump in and help us out with some of these. And a real big one is what happens if I change a field or a dog type? Let's say you've got related hotel. So you have a hotel and there's one other hotel that's very closely matching to that hotel. And you go live with that and it's out there and you've done your REST endpoints and everything's all fantastic. And then they go, actually, can we increase that to be multiple hotels? Because we actually want several hotels to be related. And you go, yeah, we can do that. So how do we handle that situation? And what we have to think about is how do we ensure that we don't break anything? If we just change that field, instead of being related hotel, we then just change it to related hotels, or we just take it from being a single number, we then make it an array, we're going to blow something up somewhere unless we handle it nicely. So you have to think about who's using that field. Now, Facebook get around this really, really well. They obviously have just a ton of data and a ton of fields everywhere. And they want to be able to make sure that they're not breaking anyone's experience as well. Because those advertising dollars and, rigging elections and stuff, that stuff doesn't look after itself. You've got to make sure you're up and doing it. Controversial. So they get a method which is basically, they don't delete anything. Nothing gets deleted. If a developer mistypes a column name and puts it into the database, that's in there effectively forever because they don't know who's using it. They can't just go in and rename it. What they'll do instead is they'll make the correctly named column name and leave the old one in there as well, which I think is quite smart because, hey, when you own all the servers in the world, you can do that kind of stuff. It's all pretty good. But what they do is they monitor who's using what, which is quite cool. So if every time a field's requested, they keep a counter on that. And then if eventually, after a month, if that counter's not gone up, it's still on 0, then they think it's pretty safe to delete that field. That's how they kind of get around that. But what they do is they obsolete things. And in Umbraco, what we were thinking of doing was having an obsolete tab. We have one that we call legacy. Whenever we rebuild a site, there's always some fields that we don't like, that aren't really needed anymore, but clients always like to have them. So we moved them over to a legacy tab, and I was thinking, well, why don't we just continue that over? And basically anything on a legacy tab we would flag up. So if you requested any of those fields, we would say these are now obsolete, and you shouldn't be using them. And one of the ways we were going to get around that is we're going to allow you to change the label of that particular field, probably by putting square brackets in it somewhere, a bit of metadata buried in the label, and then we would pull that out and explain why that field's no longer used. So it would give you clues. So for instance, if you were using star rating, and we changed it to star ratings, related hotels, then we would say, right, don't use this one anymore. You need to go use this other field called related hotels, which will return an array. So still nothing's blowing up. That data's still in there. It's still being used. It just means it's pointing you to the right way of being used. And metric middleware, that's where I was talking about being able to count all the times that a particular field's used. That's what we're after. Seeing a lot of yawning. Look, I know it's after lunch. Come on. We're nearly there. I've got 10 more minutes. We can do this. Push through. Do I need to speak louder? Do I need to set off fireworks? Do a flip. Okay, so let's expand on that last example a little bit. So I've got one hotel, which is all very well, but I need several, don't I? For this one, I'm just going to use 2. Now again, while writing this, we spotted a problem. What I really want to do is I want to say get types plural, or get hotels plural, and I want to be able to pass in multiple IDs, and it will just give me an array. Currently, it won't do it, so we've got an issue open to add that functionality in. So instead, what I'm having to do 2 named hotels, and then I'm doing 2 hotel page grabs. To show you that we can get multiple hotels back. It's very jolly. Voice is breaking. Now we can expand on that a little bit more. So that's working very well and good. Can you see how we've got that duplication of data though on the left-hand side? Content data name and URL, content data name and URL. Bit messy that. Let's see if we can put that right. Please work. There we go. So now I'm going to add flame rating in. Not star rating, who'd have thought? Client say. And then I need an image, if you remember, so I'm going to go for banner image. Now, I don't know if you saw, but that banner image is I publish content item itself because it's media. So I now need to go get the content data, and I want to get the URL of the actual image that we've linked to. And that should come back with something. And you can see I've now got my flame rating and my banner, but notice Hotel 2 does not have flame rating and banner. Dun, dun, dun. Duplication-tastic. So I'm going to put that right as well, and hopefully show you a little bit about fragments. Ooh, in that query getting a bit wordy. Let's tidy that up. Come on, Pete, what are you going to do about that? Yeah, that looks good. Don't need any of that. My God, what am I doing? Oh, I'm sorry, it's gone off screen a bit, isn't it? Let the side down. Anyway, I'm creating a fragment. Shortlist hotels with star rating, big image. How long? Piss off, 2 minutes. This thing says 7. Fine. Fine. Anyway, there you go. So I create me fragment. I'm now going to use my fragment. ... Lovely. That's exactly the same thing. Let's go tidy up the top one. Come on, Pete, you can do it. Oh, doesn't that look nicer? That's trimmed it down a bit, isn't it? Dry-tastic. So now if I want to add an extra field in, I can do it in the fragment and everything gets it. Oh, we've gone full circle. Isn't that lovely? Oh yeah, I can go up and down the tree. I know what I lie to my mum. It's I publish content at the end of the day, so I can go up to the parent and go get its name and render that in there too. Et voila! 2 hotels, fragments, everything's all there. Isn't that sweet? I like that. Makes me happy. 2 minutes. Totally doable. Is it fast? It's got to be slow, right? It's got to be proper sluggish. It's usually I publish content under the hood, so yes, it's absolutely blazingly quick. But you're not going to believe me, are you? So we put a debug option in that you can say, tell me how fast it is, and it goes, okay, are you ready for this? All of the metrics. You can look in here and have a look around. It's an awful lot of data that it drops in. We're more than welcome to look into it. We have ideas of being able to GraphQL this as well, so you can say, just give me the execution time. Just give me the number of queries you did, rather than have to look at all that crap every time. You switch on debug, it'll give you this, switch it off, it won't give you this. So in production, you never see it. Authentication, we baked all this in, I'm going to skip this. Blah, 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 blah. We've done it. It's not very pretty, but it works. Needs a bit more work, and then it'll be released in the package. For now, everything's public. Everything, including my buyer price, which we have to be careful about. When the authentication thing's finished, everything will be hidden. You have to opt into every single field. So you're in charge, 100%. It's a bit laborious, but it's safe. If you want to play with it, you can do so right now. You can go search for GraphQL on GitHub, and you will find Rasmus's install. You can also install it manually if you feel like, a bit like MacGyver. And you can await the package, which is going to have authentication in, or you can install it by NuGet right now without any authentication and start playing. It's awesome when you put it on real data that you know, run it, go to GraphQL, start fucking typing around, and live data comes back. You'll get the wide-eyed moment, and you will bloody love it like I do. Go play with it. It is phenomenal. We need help, though. Got a lot of issues, a lot of big thinking to be done. As many heads as we put on it, the better. The more people use it, the better. As I can say, just doing those videos, we were finding problems with the syntax that we could tighten up, problems with what-ifs that we can tighten up. They're the bits that now that we need doing. And again, it's massive thanks to Rasmus for getting us that far. But it's not just Rasmus, of course. Whole team's been working it, and we've all been putting an awful lot of hours to get it to this point. And then I've been traveling the world telling people about it so that you lot can get excited about it. Woohoo! So a big thanks to Rasmus, Jack, Janae, Kyle, Steve, obviously, and the legend, and some stupid idiot in a spaceman helmet. Future plans, it's going to go live on a real site before the end of the year. We want to do more work on accounts. We're going to allow for mutations, yes, even though hardly any of you are going to use them, but we're still going to burn insane amounts of hours getting it to work, because all you'll keep asking about. And loads of docs on how to get your own templates, things in there. And investigate loads of other goodies. Thank you very much. If you want to ask me any questions, I'm more than happy to talk, as long as my throat holds out. But you owe me a beer. In fact, you owe me a beer anyway, which is all fine. Thank you very much.